If you got duped into playing a game that unleashed an evil witch into your world, what would you do? This story has layers, in that it's really 4 short films framed by a 5th, all revolving around the notion of death not being the worst thing that can happen to you. No That disease that locks you inside your body like a prisoner is definitely worse. But because I love surviving the seemingly impossible, we're gonna do it with all the shorts here. Both the imaginary ones these posers read from the Red Book, the satanic vessel of an old witch, as well as their story in which the witch breaks them body and soul for her own purposes. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the Bookworm Witch in the Red Book Ritual. Now, before I begin, I just want to extend a special thanks to this video's sponsor, FlexiSpot. I recently upgraded my gaming setup to include one of their convertible desks, and it's made sweating it out and hell let loose a hell of a lot more comfortable. More on them later. Our story begins with all the footage that got cut from Sumer's video in the ring. A witch cuts her hand, presses it to a book, draws on the walls in her own blood, and then unalives herself. You know, a typical Tuesday night. It's a satanic ritual that ties her soul to the book, allowing her to sort of become a less cool version of the Babadook, crossed with those women on TikTok who are obsessed with the smuttiest literary smut to ever smut. We cut to a parlor where 3 morons are messing around with the occult. Bia is the gullible final girl who Sophie and Justin like to torment with scary stuff. They convince Bia that they should play a game called the Red Book. Sophie muddles the rules with the setup, so I'm gonna streamline it for you. Go into a quiet room, light a candle, and select any red book without illustrations. Close your eyes, place your hand on the book's cover. Verbally ask, "Red Book, may I enter your game?" Then open the book to a random page and see what the book has to say. That's what the game is. You ask a question with your hand on the book, then open the book to see the answer. Sophie's only warning is that you have to ask permission to play, and then permission to quit, or the game will punish you. The book Bia happens to have is the actual red book, marked by the witch. She doesn't know what it is. It came with her house. So did the gray cat roaming around the room. Now, it's not entirely clear if they're making it up or telling her some fabled version of what they actually heard about Bia's house, but Sophie and Justin tell Bia that her house used to belong to a witch who vanished, and the cat is her familiar who likes to possess the house's owners. With that, we cut into the first story, told by Sophie and Justin, and it isn't one from the Red Book. We meet a Dub-Dub-1 soldier returning home. He's injured with a steady limp in his step as he stumbles onto his dreary sepia-toned farm. He finds a strange, blood-covered dress on the fence and rushes inside looking for his wife Bonnie. The house is a wreck, and he finds Bonnie naked in bed with a color-changing cat. He asks Bonnie what happened, but she's nonverbal, exhausted, and dirty. There's no food in the cupboard, the electricity doesn't work, and Bonnie's taken to a hunting game with a crossbow. Nerds, are you sitting down? Because you're gonna stand right up when you see this video sponsor, FlexiSpot. In my experience, there's nothing better after sitting down for a 16-hour gaming session than standing up and continuing that same session until 10 a.m. And with a high-quality customizable desk from FlexiSpot, you too can make that a reality. This time around, we're looking at their E7 Pro. Like all their other height-adjustable desks, the E7 Pro offers seamless conversion from a sitting to standing desk and serves as a rock-solid foundation for any home office or gaming setup. Unlike the others, however, the E7 Pro boasts unsurpassed stability and strength with its 440-pound limit, meaning I can go from sitting to standing on the desk without any problem at all. FlexiSpot does not recommend standing on the desk, neither does Nerd Explains. Plus, with the E7 Pro's semi-C leg structure, you can get the best of both C and T-type legs without any of the drawbacks. That means better stability and storage space, as well as more room to kick your legs in rage when I head tap you back at spawn. Of course, you're still gonna need somewhere to sit half the time. FlexiSpot has you covered there too, with models like their C7 Premium Ergonomic Desk Chair. Now, you're probably wondering what this thing transforms into. Well, The answer is nothing. It's just a chair. But it's more than just a chair. The C7's lower back support is designed to accommodate all known sitting positions, and with its adjustable headrest, 90 to 128 degree recline, and 4D adjustable armrests, it's easy to see why the C7 was one of CNET's best office chairs of 2024. Don't settle for less when it comes to comfort. Head on down to the link in the description and use my code YTBNY30 for an extra $30 off an E7 and E7 Pro. For new arrival E7 Plus, use YTBNY50 for an extra $50 off. When she wanders into the woods, the soldier reconnects with his dog, who won't enter the house, and eviscerates Bonnie's cat at his first opportunity. He buries the evidence, but Bonnie definitely notices when she comes home with dinner. I mean, she's still riding that fine line on hot versus crazy index, so maybe. It doesn't take long for Bonnie to freak out, or for her to realize that he knows what happened. He tells her it was the dog, so she grabs the crossbow. The soldier follows her to the barn where he sees her cat is still alive, and grabs the shovel to apparently ruin his up marriage in the worst way possible. Bro, the first time was an accident. There is no coming back from intentionally Hulk smashing your wife's pet. But he never gets the chance, taking a sudden bolt to the shoulder. He tussles with his wife, takes the bow and shoots the cat, only for it to vanish like smoke and piss off his missus even more. He survives by clocking her with a shovel and realizes she's possessed as the cat rematerializes and Bonnie's eyes shine. In the end, he leaves home for good. So, decent mental health services are a very recent thing. For example, it wasn't until 1967 that there was a law preventing the institutionalization of patients against their will. The soldier's on his own, is what I'm saying. I know he just got home, but if he has family or a minister to turn to, that could help. But at the time, his only other option would probably have been carting her away. You and I would be calling a therapist and an exorcist. But since nobody but the cat actually died, it's survivable by doing exactly what he does, leaving her to live her best witch puppet life. Back in the parlor, Sophie and Justin laugh at Bia's fear. Then they all begin the process with the Red Book, reciting the initial question, Red Book, may I enter your game? They each take turns asking questions, and the answers are figurative at best, but close enough to actual answers that paranoia sets in. When Bia asks for proof that someone is there, someone screams.
If you're really here with us, prove it.
They freak out, and Sophie asks how they can leave the game. Her fingers slide across the page like it's possessed, pointing out words like danger and don't go, until a dark entity appears behind her.
What the f was that?
Bia thinks the book is helping them for some reason. She asks the book how many spirits are there, and it says 3. Sophie asks how they can leave the game, and the book tells them to read it, turning by itself to our first actual Red Book story. This one's short and kind of pointless, honestly. A couple, Nick and Chloe, are driving through the desert after suffering a miscarriage that's emotionally drained them. In the middle of nowhere, they encounter a strange feral child standing in the road. They get out to investigate when a man pulls a shotgun on them, warning not to touch the boy. Chloe assumes the man must have hurt the kid. The guy calls the kid a demon, and Nick tries to play peacemaker, but Chloe feels like playing hero tonight, and the armed guy is trigger happy. Chloe's shot in the ankle. Nick beats the old man half to death. The old man begs them not to touch the kid. Nick does anyways and gets possessed. Chloe gets one look at the kid's face and realizes she's made a huge mistake. Not that we know what that mistake is, since we never see the kid's face, but maybe this is the epilogue to when evil lurks. I don't know. In a scenario like this, the best option is gonna be the sucky one. Just leave. See if you have service on your phone, record your location, and go to the police. It's a tough call. The kid could be dead by the time you return, but that's just a chance you're gonna have to take. But if you just have to play hero, read the room and try talking with the armed guy. If he's not interested in talking, you could do the brash, stupid thing of getting back in the car and running him over when he thinks you're going to drive away. It's risky, and you'll be going to jail if this is just a family squabble, but it's your call. When Justin finishes reading the story, the book takes a single drop of his blood, and he suddenly sees a figure appear in the room. But he doesn't tell the girls, so Sophie just hops right into the next story. In Korea, a little girl, Gia, wakes to find a ghost sitting at the edge of her bed repeating spooky shit. It was a nightmare about her father. Gia's mom comforts her, but won't let the girl go to check on her sick dad, who mom says is sleeping in the other room. Mom is about 7 screws short of a functioning plane hatch. When her brother-in-law calls to check on Gia's dad, she lies about being away from home, then hides with her daughter when he shows up at the door. She tells Gia that daddy is sick, and her uncle just wants the insurance money they've received to help. But the girl remembers other times when her father was sick and they received money for that too. The mom's fine with the girl's interest in her father up to a certain point, but once it crosses that line, a strange jealousy settles around them. She calls her daughter a and holds herself away. Gia's curiosity gets the best of her, and she ventures into her dad's room, where he's strapped to the bed using some sort of polyester twine. When he wakes, he begs her to call her uncle when mom's not around. Gia hides under the bed as her mom enters, takes eye clamps, and pries her husband's eyes open. She grabs a brooch pin and straddles him, preparing to blind him. He's saved by Gia's sudden gasp. Mom tells Gia to come out, then spins an abuse tale as old as time. Mom says they're basically running an insurance scam because dad can't work, and he asks her to do this so they could pay for Gia. When Gia doesn't believe her, Mom says she's happy to let Gia take his place. Whoa, great mom. She drags Gia toward her tools of torture and brings a knife to her daughter's face until the girl is forced to beg her to continue hurting her dad instead. Gia escapes the room, only to hear her dad's tortured ghost call her back. She discovers her dad dead and her mom acting crazy nearby. And the story ends. Not really a happy ending. Definitely heavy shit. This one is unsurvivable without a lot of preparation, which this family did not have time for. Teaching your kids how to not only identify, but respond to strange and threatening behavior takes years, and it has to be done in a way that doesn't ruin their developing minds. And it takes a long time for kids to realize they're being abused, because this household behavior is all they really know. We learned earlier that this wasn't the first quote-unquote scam her mom has done, using him as a canvas for her painful art. How much earlier is unclear too, but if there was downtime in between, the responsibility rested on the dad to seek help then, or to teach her to call his brother whenever he asks. My advice? Teach your children a safety protocol that can be used in most scenarios, as well as a safety phrase that triggers that protocol. For example, tell them anytime they hear you say flamingo breakdance to immediately pick up the phone and dial a trusted relative or the police for help. Or if a phone isn't available, to walk to a neighbor's house that you trust. And if you're a parent in an abusive relationship with your spouse, remember, your kid is absorbing everything. Neurons are firing and futures are being rewritten. Reach out to domestic violence charities and lawyers. Build your support structure. Record everything. Don't let it get to this point. This time, the book takes a drop of Sophie's blood as the Korean ghost joins the party, and Sophie bolts in fear, getting ejected from the game entirely. Bea asks the book where Sophie is. The book just tells them to keep reading. The next story is meh, honestly, so we're not gonna dwell on it for too long. A guilt-stricken doctor named Carla has been using some sort of drug on her vegetative brother that's keeping him alive, but not exactly living. Her sister-in-law begs her to consider taking him off life support, but she won't listen. When she learns the hospital has run out of his meds, she's forced into the east wing of the hospital, the Silent Hill wing that every major medical center has. When she grabs the meds, spooky sounds begin. Her stethoscope vanishes, a ghost appears, and the door back to the working hospital is locked. She looks around for another exit as the lights flash. A record player starts working on its own, and she discovers a haunted bathtub. Her stethoscope suddenly reappears, and she has a close encounter. She drops the drugs and hides, but when she looks back, the meds are gone. She wanders deeper to retrieve the vial, and the ghost terrifies her. What do you want? It's her brother. He motions for her to let him go, and she finally does, leaving the drugs behind, returning to his room and pulling the plug. Yeah, you know what I'm gonna say. Ghost Bro wanted one more scare for himself, because none of this was necessary. Could have just appeared as himself and told her. So, moving on. The book takes a drop of Bia's blood as she explains that the hospital was apparently about her mom. She suddenly sees Carla wandering off and follows. Justin hears Sophie call out for help and follows the sound, where the witch reaches out of the dark and breaks his neck. I mean, they've all technically broken the rules at this point, because I'm gonna guess there's a technicality about not leaving the table, which they've already done. Bia notices the wallpaper above where she found the book is torn and tears it further, revealing part of some sort of blood magic on the wall as we transition into another story. In England, circa World War II, a woman named Ella prepares communion wine before her father. The pastor confronts their homogenous congregation, and a creep named John ogles her from across the dais. We learned that there's recently been a scandal in the house of the Lord. Ella has a female lover, and John caught them together. He and another church member broke into the woman's house and kidnapped her, carrying her to a stake in the woods where they tied her up and humiliated her, making Ella do the same. Back in the church, the congregation takes wine, and the pastor assures them their sins are behind them, as everyone suddenly succumbs to the poison Ella put in their drink.
And idolaters and all.
After they're dead, Ella heads to where her lover's being held captive by the last church member and slits his throat from behind, not announcing her presence. You see how that's done, folks? And she and her lover escape to live better elsewhere. Yeah, so I heartily give my Nerd Explained seal of approval. Screw those people. I mean, obviously, if you can escape without mass murder, probably better. But we play with the cards that we're dealt with. Only a few notes. Since she basically just murked the entire village, I might suggest grabbing any cash and unmarked jewelry you can before leaving. I mean, the only thing worse than a corpse is an unlooted corpse. Also, grab that last guy's body, put it in the church, and set it on fire, so they think everyone died and don't even think to come looking for you. Also, they're very lucky this is a humiliation church and not a murder church. Otherwise, her lover would already be dead, which is why it's probably ideal to leave before the mob pulls out their pitchforks. Back with Bia. She discovers more of the blood magic in the room right before a noose drops down and chokes her for seemingly no reason. She returns to the salon where Sophie is holding her little brother hostage with a knife. She slices the kid's finger to feed the book pure blood, then recites some witchy before sacrificing herself. Bia sends her brother to hide as the book begins to bleed, giving birth to the witch from the beginning. Witch is looking crusty, but she's been saving all of her power to take over her new puppet, which turns out to be Bia. She grabs hold and pukes into her mouth. The witch uses Bia to lure her brother out of hiding, and the movie ends. How do we avoid this less than stellar fate? It's easy. Pick a read book you already know by heart, or one that's actually useful for answering potential questions, like the dictionary. Seriously, Webster sells a red copy for $5. Once we're in the game and we start noticing crazy shit happening, we're immediately asking Sophie if she knows how to quit the game. Then we're doing that until we've annoyed this bitch into waiting for an easier target. We're pulling a Doctor Strange. We're sitting at that table all night asking to quit over and over until she gets so frustrated she either kills us or lets us go. If you use a creepy book for this, well, you're probably SOL. As for the stories we get, only one is very likely inescapable, the Korean child abuse story. And even then, it's because she's sweet and stupid. There are plenty of kids who would have bounced the second their mom called them a For those reasons, I think the movie was mostly beaten. And remember, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And thanks again to FlexiSpot for supporting this video, as well as my entire gaming setup with this awesome conversion desk. Don't forget, if you're interested in a desk like mine and also want to help support the channel, head on over to FlexiSpot's website using the link below to find options with a basic standing function starting at $150. And like I said before, use my code YTBNY30 for an extra $30 off on the E7 and E7 Pro. For new arrival E7 Plus, that's YTBNY50 for an extra $50 off.